Hi, my name is Eric Anthony, and I want to tell you about something that's going on in China. It's what's called a genocide, and in history, if you've learned about Nazi Germany, they committed a genocide against the Jews and against people they deemed as undesirable. So the same thing is going on. It's slightly different tactics, but it's still definitely a genocide. We're going to get into what's going on, who the people are that are being killed and enslaved, and I'm going to show you some news articles that you can find on the internet so you can do your own research. But first, I'm going to show you the Wikipedia page about genocide, so we have a definition of what genocide is. So here we can see the Wikipedia page for genocide. It says, first of all, genocide is the intentional action to destroy a people. So they're being killed is what's meant by being destroyed. Usually defined as an ethnic, national, racial, or religious group. So in this case, it's a religious group of Muslims that live in China. I believe they're about 1.5% of the population of China, or there's about 10 million of them. Um, so we can get a bit into more into what genocide is here in the article on Wikipedia, and it defines like what genocide is. So we can click on that. There's 5 prohibited acts when committed with requisite intent amount to genocide. So it's not just that they're ending people's lives in a fashion that's based on their race or ethnicity. So mass killings is not the only part that's part of a genocide. Um, it says a near uniform pattern has emerged throughout history in which men and adolescent boys are singled out for murder in the early stages, such as in the genocide of the Yazidis or Yazidis by Daesh, the Ottoman Turks' attack on the Americans, and the Burmese security forces' attack on Rohingya. Men and boys are typically subject to fast killings such as gunshot. Women and girls are more likely to die slower deaths by slashing, burning, or as a result of sexual violence. So we can see that there's different methods of killing that are all just horrible, and we'll go over some of what's happening in China. So it doesn't have to be just killing; it can be causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction. So that could be like poisoning their crops or taking away their resources, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. So one thing they're doing in China to the Uyghurs is they're forcing the women uh, into taking birth control pills. So that falls under the definition of genocide. What they're doing in China is they're forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. So they're relocating these children, um, and they're sending them away. They're separating them from their parents. So we can see here. Here's an article from the Sun UK newspaper, and the headline reads, "They have no choice. China accused of mass rape program for forcing Uyghur women to marry men chosen by the state to promote ethnic unity." So what this means is that Muslim women, they have to submit to a Chinese man and have sex with them. Uh, they're forced to share a bed and even marry men from the Han majority who are appointed by the communist state. So it's like people from the government come to your house and rape you, and then force you to have kids. And so this activist Rashan Abbas is saying this scheme is mass rape. Here's a picture of Rashan Abbas. So it's interesting because um, the media is silent about this, and we're not seeing a lot of coverage. We're seeing, what's going on with Donald Trump on Twitter. We're seeing things about the American federal election that's going to happen in November. We're seeing a huge amount of fear mongering around COVID-19, the coronavirus. Um, we're seeing a lot of the effects of the George Floyd protests. And we're not seeing a lot of these news items that are very pertinent and ignored. And it really is scary because when Nazi Germany happened, um, people started hearing stories and telling stories to each other that, the German army is taking people away. People are disappearing. And a lot of people didn't believe it. And now we look at what's happening in China, and it's kind of a different angle. It's just that it's ignored by the mainstream media. And I think a big reason for that is that I'll go back to a news site here. It's actually Breitbart. Okay, so we can see a study has been done. Nike, Apple, BMW, among 83 brands are using Chinese Muslim slave labor. So what they're doing is they are taking these Uighur Muslim people, the Kazakhs and other Muslim ethnic minorities who were forced to live enduring indoctrination, torture, rape, and murder. In December, the Chinese government, which always referred to the concentration camps as vocational training centers, just a way of twisting the facts, controlling the narrative, announced that the concentration camps victims have graduated from vocational training and left the camps. So what they feel like they've done enough damage, and they're severely crippled in terms of having their own sovereignty within China. So the article goes on to say the Chinese government has facilitated the mass transfer of Uyghur and other ethnic minority citizens from the far west region of Xinjiang to the factories across the country. So this fits the definition of genocide, is that they're relocating people. This is what ASPI revealed. It goes on to say, under conditions that strongly suggest forced labor, Uyghurs are working in factories that are in the supply chains of at least 83 well-known global brands in the technology, clothing, automotive sectors, including Apple, BMW, Gap, Huawei, Nike, Samsung, Sony, and Volkswagen. So what's going on here is that we know all these companies, especially like Apple, Nike, Samsung, these really huge globalist corporations have a huge investment in the mainstream media in North America and all over the world. And what they can do by buying so much advertising dollars on these mainstream media outlets is that they have a say as to how the mainstream media reports the facts. So what's going on is that there's censorship by the mainstream media because these companies that are exploiting slave labor, that is basically a part of a genocide, they are covering it up and just sweeping it under the rug. So we're not talking about it. I mean, it's something that you don't see on the daily news. It's something, you see, this and that about George Floyd still. You see a lot of stuff about Trump, about coronavirus, and a few other random stuff, daily occurrences. You hear a few things about Ghislaine Maxwell, and the stuff. These stories do have merit, but what you've got to think about is, if people really knew, if it was widespread, if it was widely known that Nike is exploiting slave labor, that if a person didn't want to make Nike shoes, that they would probably be just killed. And that may influence the profitability of Nike. People wouldn't be buying Nike shoes. The Nike stock would drop. The investors would sell their stocks, and you know that would be the end of Nike, or they would have to change their game and start using humane sources of labor. And I've also heard that Amazon is using this slave labor. So the next thing I want to show you is an article from the Sunday Guardian Live. It's an online publication, and it has an article. Global brands employ Uyghur Muslims as forced labor. So it goes into a bit more detail about what companies are exploiting this genocide. So here is a picture of the concentration camp. You can see it looks pretty much like Nazi Germany, where the people are forced to wear the same clothes. There's armed guards all around. The people, do not look happy, obviously. The subtitle is Uyghur Muslims at a factory in China. So this is out of what they call the vocational schools. I can't find the article where it said that. So the report released by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, titled Uyghurs for Sale, stated that big, well-known global companies in the field of clothing, technology, and automotive sectors like Abercrombie and Fitch, Amazon, Gap, H&M, Nike, Jack Jones, Sharp, Siemens, Skechers, Asus, Apple, Samsung, Huawei, BMW, Volkswagen, Sony, Polo, Ralph Lauren, Puma, Victoria's Secret, Vivo, among others, are using Uyghur Muslims as forced labor in their factory in China. So let that sink in. These are major brands in North America and all over the world. And the mainstream media gets millions or billions of dollars collectively from these companies. So what happens is that these companies say to the mainstream media, it's not in our best interests for you to report this story because we'll lose money. Our people will stop supporting us if they find out that we're conducting that we are exploiting genocide. And so what the mainstream media does is it scratches the back of these corporations and it doesn't report it. So people don't hear about it and they keep consuming their goods. So what I want you to do if you're watching this video is spread awareness. If you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, post a story or an image or something that people can find and use hashtags Uyghur Muslim genocide. I want this information to be spread around as much as possible. And I got this idea from watching a TikTok where someone was talking about the Uyghur Muslims. So it inspired me to make this video. I hope you've learned something today, and I hope that you'll think twice about buying some of these products from Amazon or Nike. And thank you for your time. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Have a nice day.